going to be joined by Dr. William Willoughby. He is the President and Chief Executive Officer of Cypress Development, our gold sponsor. Dr. Willoughby is a mining engineer with 38 years of experience in all aspects of natural resource development. Since 2014, he's been principal and owner of the consulting firm Willoughby and Associates. Prior to that, he was president and COO of International Enexco, which was acquired by Denison Mines in 2014. He previously held various positions with Teck when it was Teck Cominco, and Dr. Willoughby has been a professional engineer since 1985 and received his doctorate in mining and engineering and metallurgy from the University of Idaho in 1989. William, welcome back to the Global Mining Symposium. It's great to see you. I know how busy you must be. I don't know if you had a chance to see our opening presentation from the World Bank.
Did you have it, Anthony? I'm sorry. We had news item out this morning on an acquisition, so it was kind of a late night for me last night.
Well, thank you for still making the time and joining us here today, because it is such a critical one, and our audience has a lot of interest in lithium. And to put it in a nutshell, as I kind of went off on the top a little bit, the World Bank was just really emphasizing that this is what they're seeing, this is what they're encouraging in terms of domestic supply chains. As Martin said, it's beyond just talks, right? They're at advanced stage discussions. We've seen some initiatives that Joe Biden, President of the States, has put out about securing more domestic supplies. Some of their policies seem to conflict a little bit on this. But maybe I would love to start there, William, if you don't mind. What have been some of the key steps that the U.S. government is taking to ensure domestic supply?
Well, I know we've got different policy issues that come out from the federal government. They've putting in quite a bit of money into the Department of Energy programs that should be available going forward for development. I know some of that's being tapped by, say, Berkshire Hathaway down in California and some other programs, but those are brine developments. We haven't pursued that avenue just yet. It's something that we might look at going forward as we look to capitalize the project. For ourselves right now, we're entirely focused on our pilot plant program and the feasibility study ahead. We know that there's been some shifts in the environmental aspects of the federal government, maybe going back to more of the way it was before the Trump administration was in office, and taking a bit longer on permitting. But I think with our project, that won't affect us either. We're in really good position in terms of our property position and the process that we're going to employ.
And just staying with the macro before we go into the micro and the asset level insights to the project, what would you like the government to do? Is the best thing getting out of the way and making the regulatory process, the permitting process easier, or is there other things that would be smart investments by the government to help encourage a domestic supply chain?
Well, I've always been of the opinion that being out west in the U.S., you learn to be self-sufficient and relying on yourself. So I'm not looking for a handout for a project. I think that we have a quality project. We'll bring it forward. We'll be self-reliant on that. We're working to be a clean and sustainable project, fit into the new energy programs that are developing. But as far as needing government programs and that sort of thing to progress, that's not on my list of things to do.
Okay, and I'm sure your investors like to hear that. Let's look a little bit at Clayton Valley Lithium Project, which is in Nevada. How does it compare with other clay projects in Nevada?
Well, I think we're in a very good position. We're in a chloride basin for water around us. What we've done with our clay project is orient it towards the resources and particularly the water supplies. That's how we focused on this chloride leaching approach. Other clay projects, by necessity, by not having that sort of environment around them, are focused on sulfuric acid leaching or calcining as the approach to extracting the lithium from the clay. So we're in a unique position that way. We're also unique in the fact that we've got the technology in hand, and we've got an operating research facility and pilot plant at this present time. So strategically, I think we're in a great position for the project and the company going forward there.
Excellent. Now, at the end of last year, Cypress secured water rights. Can you kind of highlight for investors why that's so important And does that separate you from other players in the region?
Well, regionally in the state, there's other companies do have access to water. What is unique about our situation is Clayton Valley is a closed basin. It's fully appropriated in terms of the water rights. We were fortunate in being able to acquire the rights to one permit, which we've been working continuously through the program to conserve water and minimize it, knowing that processed water is at a premium and it's difficult to get access to water in our location in Clayton Valley. It's a fully appropriated basin. We're fortunate with this permit that we are able to get enough for the project.
Okay, great. Now you mentioned the pilot plant, so let's go into that, into what the extraction process is looking like. You did make a switch from using sulfuric acid to hydrochloric acid. Why was that switch made?
Well, first we looked at it in terms of the supply characteristics of the project. With a sulfuric acid base, you need to bring raw sulfur to the project, so you're trucking in sulfur supply. Now you're dependent on most likely the oil and gas industry for that supply. You are constrained by the number of trucks you can actually bring to site. When we looked at the chloride leach approach, it's self-sufficient and sustaining, meaning that we're able to use this highly saline brine, apply electric current to it in an electrolytic cell, and then we're able to generate our own hydrochloric acid, our own sodium hydroxide on site with it. That means all we need is a power line coming to the project rather than a string of trucks bringing sulfur. That was one character. The other was that we wanted to potentially be able to unlock that bottleneck that's created by the limitation on sulfur supply. So,
is there any benefits environmentally to making that switch?
I think we have now a cleaner process for sure. It's sulfuric acid and acid plants, they're all been around and they're quite capable of being a clean process. What we have though is we've got something that's sustainable. We don't need that outside supply. We could rely upon green energy in the region. That what we've seen in our plant, it's an easier plant for us to operate than a sulfuric acid leach. We're able to get better separation on our tailings and easier filtration, getting a PLS grade that's grading to our filtration units. So it's for us, it's an easier process.
Okay, great. Excellent. We talked about securing the water rights, but what about permits going forward? What are some of the key ones that are needed, and do you foresee any difficulties on that front?
Well, there's two that really are time consuming. One is the record of decision, and that requires a plan of operations. Must go through an environmental impact statement and EIS. We're going to work to putting together that plan of operations this year and get that going. It's probably a 1 to 2 year process now. Under the previous administration, it was more like a 1 year process on paper. The other aspect that we have to approach is the water pollution control permit with the state of Nevada. That's a fairly straightforward process, but time consuming. So we're working to get all these permits in hand and just move the project into the feasibility and permitting. Excellent.
Excellent. We have a couple of questions here from the audience around why you were up late last night around the press release. The first one's from another William. He asked, Bill, can you please elaborate on what the strategic plans are for the new land acquired from Enertopia in today's news release?
Yeah, well, what we announced today was that we acquired a parcel of land at the northeast corner of our project from Enertopia Corporation. It's a small parcel, but it has a resource on it. It's, I think the previously published resource is about 100 million tons at 1,100 parts per million lithium, so similar grade to our project. If you look at the general arrangement of our pit layout, we have a 2 mile long pit. This would extend it up probably about another 1/4 mile to the northeast, straightens out that corner of the property. And when you have 2 properties that are adjoining and you remove that property line, you're also able to get more resources just that are tied up by that property line. So what we will do going with this acquisition is bring that into our feasibility study. There were 4 good drill holes on that project that Enertopia had drilled. We'll do some pit optimization and see if we can up the grades of our early production in our mine schedule.
Okay, and picking up on that, just maybe a little more detail from Jason's asking also about the news today. He says the news today around the land acquisition mentions optimization and scheduling as it pertains to your mine plan. Number one, can you elaborate on what exactly is being optimized and scheduled? And number two, does this land acquisition relate to the previous 480 acres that were acquired?
Okay. Tail end of that question is no, this is a separate parcel of land. The other 480 acres were elsewhere in the valley. The optimization that's being done is when you have a mine schedule, you want to get the highest grade possible in your early years to optimize your rate of return and your net present value. So right now we're carrying about 1,200 parts per million in the first 6 years of the project. Like to get that upwards of maybe 10 years at that type of grade. I think there's an opportunity over there at Topia that we might do that. It's something we'll evaluate. But for us, it was a good, reasonable acquisition. Came at a fair price to Intertopia and a fair price to us, so we did it.
Okay, excellent. Well, congratulations on that, Bill. One last one. Oh, a new one came in. I can't get. I'll preference the audience over myself. From Eric, do you think there will be an opportunity to expand beyond 27 to 30,000 lithium per annum with the current water rights?
That might be a tight squeeze on that. Right now, we only have 1,700 acre feet under the water right. Probably would need more. I've got a strategy in mind for how we get more. That's down the road. Our first focus is trying to hit our target for the feasibility study, which is around 30,000 tons a year of LCE.
Okay, got it. And then just finally, I was at a recent Robert Friedland talk, and his thesis is that there's just simply not enough battery metals around that we could actually, if we're talking about, 10 years out, some of the EU goals of switching their entire automobile fleets to EVs, there's just not enough metal to actually do that. So his thesis is that we're going to continue to have petrol engines for a very, very long time, and EVs will remain more for the elite, for people that can afford them. I know it's a bit of a macro question, but I'd love to get your take on that. Is there enough lithium? I mean, you're the lithium guy. There's more than just lithium that goes into these EV batteries, but it certainly is a critical one. From where you sit, judge the accuracy of that statement.
Well, there is plenty of lithium in the world. There's no doubt about that. Nevada as a state would rank third in the world behind Bolivia and Argentina in terms of lithium resources in the ground. Our problem in Nevada is being able to process the clay and get that out. It's obviously energy intensive, being able to leach a material and then extract it and then concentrate the lithium. You have around the Salton Sea in California, a tremendous resource. I think General Motors and Berkshire Hathaway are working on that. Elsewhere in the world, Bolivia, Argentina, they have great resources in lithium. It's just a case of how do you get the capital and the projects to bring this all in line in the time that we want to keep the EV growth sustained. So it's going to be a supply demand issue for sure. Friedland's right on that. And will gas engines be around? Probably so. It's going to get a lot of people will have a hard time converting over. But on the cost side of it, EVs are coming down in price all the time. Batteries are coming down in price. Materials should try that next generation that Tesla's looking towards to make that a standard middle class acquisition for a family. So
excellent. Bill, it's always wonderful to get your thoughts on both the macro level and on what's going on with you as you push this project forward. Thank you so much for joining us and enlightening us. And we wish you all continued success on what's going to be a busy year for you.
Yeah, it already has been. So.
It already has been. Good stuff, Bill. Great seeing you.
All right. Thank you. Appreciate it, Anthony. Take care.
Bye.